The jungle was alive with sound. Cicadas sang in waves, parrots screamed from the high trees, and the air carried the scent of rain and soil. Dr. Daniel Cruz stood at the edge of a newly cleared site, staring at the stone steps that led down into the earth. The stones were ancient, covered with vines and roots, yet there was something strange about them. The carvings looked too sharp, too perfect, as if time itself had been afraid to touch them. Daniel wiped the sweat from his face and looked at the glowing scanner in his hand. The readings showed a signal far below the surface. It was not stone or soil. It was metal, and it was old. Older than any structure ever found in the Yucatan. His assistant, Mira, came running from the tent, holding a notebook and a small transmitter. She was young but brilliant, always curious and fearless. "The signal is steady," she said. "It's coming from at least 60 meters down?" "Whatever it is, it's huge." Daniel nodded. "It doesn't make sense. The Mayans didn't have metal structures like this." "Maybe it's a meteorite," Mira said, her voice unsure but excited. He smiled faintly. "Then it's the most perfectly shaped meteorite in history." Around them, workers continued clearing vines and dirt from the ruins. The steps descended into darkness, and the carvings became clearer with each layer removed. The walls were lined with gold symbols that shimmered faintly even in the dim light. They were not only Mayan symbols, some were completely unknown. By evening, the dig site was quiet except for the hum of generators. The team gathered near the entrance to the newly uncovered staircase. Daniel turned on his flashlight and stepped closer to the edge. The beam of light fell on a mural showing a tall, four-armed figure holding a glowing orb in one hand and what looked like a human heart in another. Around it were small figures kneeling. Mira took a photo. "It looks like a god," she whispered. Daniel studied the figure. "Yes, but not one I've ever seen in any Mayan record. Look at its head, it's shaped like a helmet. And the arms are too long. This isn't symbolic, it's literal." The mural extended along the wall, showing the same being surrounded by golden stars. The writing below was in classic Mayan script, but parts of it were filled with unfamiliar shapes that looked more like energy patterns than letters. Daniel called for the language specialist, Dr. Alvarez, an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes. He examined the carvings for a long time before speaking. "It says the tomb was built to honor a god who came from the sky. It speaks of the day the Golden One descended, bringing life and knowledge. It also warns about an offering, a pact of blood and gold that must never be broken." "Blood and gold," Mira repeated quietly. "That sounds like a warning." Dr. Alvarez nodded slowly. "Or a reminder." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The jungle hummed with life, but beneath it, he could feel another rhythm, a deep vibration that seemed to come from underground. It wasn't the generators or the river nearby. It felt alive, like the earth was breathing. Near midnight, he got up and walked to the dig site alone. The moonlight cut through the mist, silvering the leaves. When he reached the top of the staircase, he saw a faint red glow deep below. It pulsed softly, as if something far beneath the surface was awakening. Daniel felt a chill. He wanted to believe it was just a reflection from some mineral or equipment light. But no machine was down there. He stood still for several minutes, listening. There was no wind, no animal sound, only that low hum. In the morning, the team returned with new equipment. They set up lights, scanners, and cables along the staircase. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. The walls started to change from rough stone to smooth panels that looked like a blend of metal and crystal. The gold patterns that ran across them pulsed faintly like veins. Mira ran her fingers across the wall and felt it vibrate. "It's not solid rock," she said. "It feels like it's alive." Daniel warned her to be careful. "Let's just document everything. No touching until we understand what it is," but curiosity was stronger than caution. As the day went on, Mira found a spot on the wall where the patterns were brighter. When she leaned closer, the shapes moved slightly beneath the surface, rearranging into new lines. The red glow returned, faint but visible. The workers stepped back, whispering nervously. Dr. Alvarez crossed himself quietly and muttered something about the old gods. Daniel tried to calm the group. "It's fine. Maybe it's some kind of bioluminescent mineral." Yet he didn't believe his own words. That evening, the scanners detected a hollow space below the main chamber. Daniel ordered the team to start clearing the lower floor. It took hours, but at last they found an opening, a narrow passage leading even deeper underground. When the first flashlight beam entered the passage, They saw that the walls were perfectly smooth and curved like the inside of a machine. Strange symbols lined the ceiling, glowing faintly in gold. Mira's voice trembled. "Daniel, this doesn't look like anything human." He nodded silently. "No, it doesn't." They followed the passage until it ended in a round metal door. It was massive, perfectly circular with a golden symbol in the center shaped like an eye. Around it were markings that seemed to form a message. Dr. Alvarez studied the carvings for a long time before speaking. "It says only those who remember the pact may enter." Mira frowned. "What pact?" "No idea," Daniel said, "but maybe the answer is inside." They spent the rest of the evening trying to open the door. It didn't respond to tools or machines. It felt indestructible. When Daniel placed his hand on it, nothing happened at first. But then slowly, the golden eye began to glow. A soft vibration ran through the floor and the circular door shifted with a low grinding sound. The team stepped back as the door split open silently. Warm light poured out, bathing them in red and gold. Inside was a vast chamber unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were covered in golden carvings and the floor was made of smooth metal plates. At the center stood a massive throne made of black stone veined with gold. And on that throne rested a figure. It looked human at first glance but was clearly not. The body was tall, elegant, and metallic, its surface carved with the same patterns as the walls. 4 arms rested across its chest and a golden mask covered its face. Mira whispered, "It's not a statue. Look at the detail, it's too real." Daniel's heart pounded. "Maybe it's a sarcophagus." Dr. Alvarez shook his head. "No, this is something else." They set up lights around the chamber and began scanning the figure. The instruments showed no decay, no organic matter, just an unknown alloy. But the energy readings were strange. The metal body emitted a soft pulse every few seconds, almost like a heartbeat. Daniel felt the same vibration he had sensed during the night. It was stronger now, coming from the figure itself. Mira looked around the room and pointed to more carvings. "These walls tell the same story," she said. "A being came from the stars. The Mayans built this place to honor it." Daniel turned back to the figure. "If this is real, if this is what they worshipped, then this isn't a tomb. It's something far more important." As the night fell again, the team left the chamber to rest and review their data. But Daniel stayed behind for a few minutes, staring at the figure on the throne. The soft red glow from its chest seemed to grow brighter, almost as if it was breathing. He whispered to himself, "Who are you?" The figure didn't move, but the hum in the air grew louder. The walls shimmered faintly, and for a moment Daniel thought he saw the golden eyes on the mask flicker to life. He stepped back, heart pounding, and turned off his flashlight. The room was still again. The glow faded slowly until the chamber returned to silence. When he finally left and climbed back to the surface, the jungle air felt heavier than before. The night insects were quiet, and somewhere deep below the tomb continued to hum. A low, patient sound that felt like the breathing of something ancient, waiting for the right moment to wake. The morning sun rose through the thick jungle canopy, painting the leaves with gold. The air was heavy with mist, and the calls of birds echoed through the ruins. Dr. Daniel Cruz stood at the edge of the dig site once more, his thoughts fixed on the strange figure they had uncovered the night before. The image of the golden body on the throne haunted his mind. It wasn't only the design or the material. It was the way it seemed to pulse faintly, as if something inside it still lived. He tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, a trick of the lights and the fatigue. But deep down, he felt that the tomb was not just an ancient monument. It was something far greater and far older than human history. Mira joined him, carrying 2 cups of strong black coffee. "You didn't sleep again," she said softly. Daniel gave a tired smile. "Could you sleep after seeing that?" She shook her head. "No, I can still hear it. That humming sound. It's faint, but it's always there." Daniel looked toward the stairway that led down to the chamber. "It's coming from the tomb. It never stops." They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the quiet buzz beneath the earth. Then Daniel called the team together. "We're going back in," he said. "Today we focus on mapping and collecting data. No one touches the figure or the walls. We need to understand how this place works before we make any move." The workers nodded uneasily. Many of them were locals who believed the site was cursed. They whispered prayers as they carried the equipment down the stairs. The first chamber was cool and dim, the air thick with the scent of dust and metal. The golden patterns on the walls glowed faintly, as if reacting to the human presence. Mira noticed that the light seemed to follow her hand whenever she moved close. "Daniel," she said, "I think it's responding to us." He frowned. "Maybe it's reacting to body heat." She shook her head. "No, it feels like it's watching." Daniel didn't reply. He adjusted his scanner, but the readings made no sense. The walls emitted low energy, yet the power source couldn't be found. The tomb seemed alive, a single connected system that was both ancient and advanced. They reached the grand chamber again. The metallic figure on the throne remained motionless. The air around it shimmered faintly, like heat rising from a desert. Daniel and Mira walked around the room, taking images and notes. Dr. Alvarez sat beside the carvings, slowly translating the old Mayan script mixed with strange symbols. After several minutes, he looked up, his eyes uneasy. "It says this being was not buried here," he said. "It says it sleeps until the stars align again." The Mayans built this place as a promise to the Golden One, who gave them knowledge. They called him Calren, the bringer of light. Mira whispered the name under her breath. Calren. It sounds powerful. Dr. Alvarez nodded slowly. "It also says that when the pact is broken, the guardian will awaken and judge the children of the earth." Daniel looked thoughtful. "Maybe it's a warning for their people, a myth to keep them respectful of the site." The older man shook his head. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they believed it would really happen." Hours passed as the team continued scanning the walls. The deeper they explored, the more they discovered. Behind the throne, they found a narrow tunnel leading into a smaller room. It was filled with golden panels covered in carvings that looked like constellations. Some matched known star systems, but others were completely unknown. Mira stared at them in awe. "These stars don't match our modern maps, but they're arranged with mathematical precision. Whoever made this knew the skies better than we do." Daniel felt a strange excitement building in him. If this is accurate, then the builders of this tomb had knowledge that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago. Maybe this is proof of something bigger, something beyond Earth. Dr. Alvarez ran his hand across one of the symbols. "It says the path of return. Perhaps it marks where they came from." While they studied the carvings, a soft sound came from the main chamber. It was a low vibration that grew louder each second. Daniel turned quickly. The lights flickered and the air began to move, as if a hidden wind had been released from the walls. The golden lines pulsed brighter, and the figure on the throne began to glow faintly from within. The humming grew louder until it filled the chamber. Mira stepped back. "Daniel, it's doing something." He raised his hand. "Stay calm. Record everything." The golden figure didn't move, but the light inside its chest pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. The air smelled of metal and ozone. The instruments picked up an energy wave that spread across the entire structure. Dr. Alvarez shouted over the noise. "It's alive." The tech said it would sleep until the stars align. Maybe something has triggered it. Suddenly, a panel in the wall shifted open by itself, revealing a hallway lined with floating metal orbs. They emitted soft red light and hovered silently in the air. The team stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. Mira whispered, "Are those machines?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, and they're functioning." The orbs began to move slowly along the hallway as if guiding them forward. Daniel took a cautious step, but one of the workers grabbed his arm. "Sir, this is not right," the man said fearfully. "We should not go there. The spirits are angry." Daniel tried to stay calm. "There are no spirits. This is a discovery of science. We can't stop now." Mira followed him into the hallway. The air grew warmer and the red lights reflected on their faces. The orbs moved ahead, leading them to another door made of black stone with golden veins running through it. An inscription above it glowed faintly, written in the same strange mix of languages. Dr. Alvarez translated in a trembling voice, "Only those who carry the memory of the pact may pass." Mira frowned. "What does that mean?" Daniel hesitated. "Maybe it's like a test. Maybe it opens for those who carry something specific, something genetic or symbolic." He reached out and touched the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the golden veins began to move like flowing rivers of light. The heavy stone door opened without sound, revealing another circular chamber beyond. The room was darker than the first, filled with soft red mist. The walls were smooth and metallic, and strange symbols floated above the floor like holograms. At the center stood a pedestal with a golden sphere hovering a few inches above it. The sphere emitted a steady pulse, matching the heartbeat-like rhythm from the main chamber. Mira's eyes widened. It's the power source. It must control everything in the tomb. Daniel stepped closer, scanning it with his device. It's stable, but the energy reading is unlike anything I've seen. It's not chemical or electrical. It's something else. Dr. Alvarez stayed near the entrance, his voice tense. The carvings on the walls talk about the heart of Kal Ren. It says this is what connects the god to the stars. Daniel studied the sphere for a long moment. The glow was beautiful and calming, yet there was a deep weight in the air, as if the room itself was aware of their presence. He turned to Mira. We need to be careful. If this is an ancient machine, it might still be active. Any wrong move could trigger something. But as he said that, the sphere pulsed again, this time faster. The floor vibrated softly. The golden lights along the walls spread upward like veins of fire. The team froze. The air filled with a faint humming voice, not human but melodic and strange. Words formed in the sound, though they couldn't understand them. Mira gripped Daniel's arm. It's speaking. He nodded slowly. And it doesn't sound angry, it sounds lonely. The humming faded after a few seconds, and the light dimmed again. The sphere returned to its steady pulse. Daniel exhaled deeply. We're leaving this room for now. We'll record everything and return tomorrow with better tools. As they made their way back through the passage, the orbs slowly drifted behind them, guiding them toward the main chamber again. The figure on the throne still glowed faintly, unmoving, but the heartbeat sound continued. When Daniel and Mira reached the surface, the evening sky was already turning red. The jungle looked peaceful again, but Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something beneath their feet was awake and aware. He turned to Mira and said quietly, I think we just found proof that our history is older than we ever imagined. She looked back at the entrance of the tomb. And maybe something down there still remembers us. As the night fell and the stars appeared above the jungle, a faint red light flickered deep within the tomb. It pulsed slowly, like the breathing of something waiting in the dark. Night settled over the jungle like a heavy blanket. The trees swayed gently, their shadows long and dark under the moonlight. The air buzzed with the sounds of insects. But deep below the surface, beneath stone and soil, another sound grew stronger, the hum of the tomb. Dr. Daniel Cruz sat in his tent, staring at the readings on his screen. The energy levels coming from the tomb were rising. Every few minutes, a sharp pulse appeared on the graph like a heartbeat. It was not random. It followed a clear rhythm, steady and precise. Mira entered the tent, holding her small notebook filled with sketches of the carvings and symbols they had found. Her face was pale and her eyes were tired but alert. It's getting louder, she said softly. Even the workers can hear it now. Daniel nodded. I know, the energy is spreading. The sensors show movement deep inside the structure. It's like the tomb is waking up. Mira hesitated before asking, Do you think it's safe to go back down? Daniel looked up at her. No, but we have to. If this thing is activating, we need to understand why. Maybe it's reacting to something we did. Or maybe it's reacting to us. Dr. Alvarez entered, holding a tablet with translations. His voice was calm but filled with concern. The more I study these writings, the more I believe this is not a tomb at all. The word they used, Kal Ren, does not mean death or resting place. It means guardian. The Mayans built this to protect something, not bury it. Daniel frowned. Protect what? The older man shook his head. Or protect us from it. The air in the tent grew still. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was forming, thick clouds gathering over the jungle. By midnight, the hum became a vibration strong enough to shake the ground. Lights flickered in the tents. Equipment screens glowed on their own. The radio cracked with static. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and motioned to Mira and Alvarez. We're going down now. The workers refused to follow. Fear had spread among them. They stayed behind, whispering prayers in the dark. Daniel, Mira, and Alvarez descended the staircase into the glowing depths. The walls were brighter than before, the golden lines pulsing like flowing veins. The air was warm and heavy. Every few seconds, the ground trembled gently. When they reached the main chamber, they stopped in shock. The golden figure on the throne was glowing from head to toe. The light inside its chest pulsed steadily, and the air around it shimmered like heat. Mira whispered, It's alive. Daniel took a slow step forward. It's reacting to something. Maybe our presence. A sound filled the chamber, soft at first, then rising into a deep tone that vibrated through their bones. The metal figure began to move. The forearms shifted slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling. The golden mask tilted forward, and 2 points of red light appeared behind it where eyes should have been. Dr. Alvarez stumbled back, crossing himself. It's waking up. The voice that followed was deep and echoing, neither human nor mechanical. It spoke in a language none of them understood, filled with rolling tones and sharp clicks. The sound made the air vibrate. Mira raised her tablet and began recording. I think it's a language. If we can capture it, maybe we can translate it. Daniel stood frozen as the figure rose from its throne. It moved slowly but with purpose. When it spoke again, the golden symbols on the walls changed shape, shifting into new patterns. The energy in the room grew stronger. Mira pointed at the carvings. It's writing something. The figure turned its head toward them. The red light in its eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly, a clear voice echoed in their minds. The words were broken but understandable. Who calls the Guardian? Daniel stepped forward carefully. We are explorers, humans. We found this place. We mean no harm. The figure tilted its head. Humans that still live? Yes, Daniel said. We are from the surface. We discovered your tomb. The being stood silent for a moment as if thinking. Then it raised one golden arm, and the red light from its chest spread across the room. Images filled the air. Holograms of ancient cities, great ships flying through the stars, and humans standing beside tall golden beings. Mira stared in disbelief. That's us, humans, the voice came again. You were children, long ago. We gave you knowledge. The pact was made. But now you have forgotten, Dr. Alvarez whispered. The pact of blood and gold. The being's eyes turned toward him. The pact was not to rule. It was to remember. You were to guard the seeds of light until our return. Daniel's heart pounded. Who are you? The being lowered its arms. I am Kalran, guardian of the promise, protector of the path. As it spoke, a deep vibration filled the chamber. The walls began to shift, revealing new passages and rooms. The golden light spread, illuminating carvings that showed entire star systems. Mira's voice trembled. It's a map. These are other worlds, Daniel nodded. It's showing where they came from. Kalran looked at them, his tone calm but filled with power. The time of silence is ending. The stars call once more. But the pact is broken. Daniel tried to stay calm. We don't understand the pact. Humanity doesn't remember, but we want to learn. The red light in Kalran's eyes dimmed slightly. You wish to learn, yet you dig without knowing. You open doors without understanding. Mira took a step forward. Please tell us what we need to know. Help us remember. The Guardian looked down at her. The last of my kind left this world when the skies turned dark. I remain to guard the heart of our knowledge. For ages I slept, waiting for the signal that the children of the sky had returned. And now you stand before me, bearing their image but not their wisdom. Dr. Alvarez bowed his head. We lost the truth over time. Civilizations rose and fell, but we still look to the stars. We never stopped wondering. For a long moment, Kalran was silent. The only sound was the faint hum of energy around them. Then the Guardian spoke again, softer this time. If what you say is true, then perhaps hope remains. The path must not be forgotten again. He extended one hand toward Daniel. A golden light flowed from his palm, forming a small sphere that floated between them. This holds the memory of the first pact. Keep it safe. Daniel reached out carefully, and the sphere landed gently in his hands. It was warm and smooth, glowing faintly. Inside it, tiny lights moved like stars. Kalran turned back toward his throne. But beware. There are others who still watch. Not all who came before sought peace. Some wanted power. If they learn that you have awakened me, they will come. Mira frowned. Who are they? The Guardian's voice grew distant. The ones who turned away from the light. The ones who saw gold as power, not memory. Daniel felt a chill. Are they still alive? Kalran looked at him. Not as you understand life, but their shadow still moves among the stars. The chamber began to tremble again. Dust fell from above. Kalran's eyes dimmed. My time of waking is not yet complete. The heart must regain its strength. When it shines once more, I will call to you. Until then, remember. The red glow around him faded slowly and the hum softened. The wall stopped moving. The guardian lowered himself back onto the throne, returning to stillness. Mira whispered, "He's going back to sleep." Daniel nodded slowly, still holding the glowing sphere. "He gave us something, a part of their memory." Dr. Alvarez looked at the figure with awe. "We stood before something that isn't human, but it spoke to us as if we were family." Daniel turned to him. "Maybe because we are." They left the chamber in silence, climbing back up to the surface. The storm had passed, and the first light of dawn touched the jungle canopy. The air felt cool and clean. Mira looked at Daniel's hand. The golden sphere still glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "What are we going to do with it?" she asked. Daniel looked toward the horizon. "We study it. We protect it. And we make sure humanity never forgets again." As the sun rose higher, the tomb below returned to silence, its guardian asleep once more. But somewhere deep within the earth, the red and gold lights continued to pulse, steady and alive, waiting for the day the stars would call again. The golden chamber shook with a deep, steady rhythm. Dust fell from the ceiling as Daniel and Mira stood before the towering figure of Calren. Its eyes glowed softly like fading embers, and its voice echoed through the tomb in words that were half ancient, half newly learned. The sound carried both sadness and power, as if the air itself bowed to its presence. "You carry their scent," Calren said, his words broken yet clear enough to be understood. "You are their children, but you have forgotten." Daniel took a slow breath and tried to stay calm. The air around him felt heavy, full of strange energy. He raised his hand slightly, showing no threat. "We are explorers," he said softly. "We don't mean harm. We came to learn." The Golden Guardian's gaze shifted toward Mira, who held the translation device close to her chest. "Learn," Calren repeated, the word rolling off his metallic tongue as if testing its weight. "Long ago your kind did not learn. They remembered. They honored. But now you come with machines, with greed, with no memory of the promise made beneath the twin suns." Mira frowned, whispering to Daniel, "Twin suns?" "He must mean another world." Daniel nodded slightly. The pieces were beginning to fit together. This being was not just a relic. It was connected to something beyond Earth, a civilization that had visited long before recorded history. The walls of the chamber came alive once again, glowing with red and gold lines that moved like rivers of light. Shapes and scenes appeared across them, figures of humans standing beside tall, four-armed beings. They were working together, building structures, exchanging tools and symbols. The humans were smaller, dressed in simple cloth, but their faces showed pride, not fear. Mira stepped closer, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's showing the past," she said. "These are ancient humans. And look, the temples, they're the same as Mayan ones." Daniel nodded. "They built them together." Calren's voice grew softer. "Yes, together, the pact was made. Blood for life, gold for memory. You offered one, we gave the other. But the offering stopped. The memory was lost. The pact was broken." Mira looked up at the being. "What was the pact about?" she asked gently. Calren's eyes dimmed for a moment, then flared bright again. "To protect. To remember. To keep balance. When the creators left this world, one guardian remained. I was chosen to sleep beneath the soil, to wait for your return. But your kind forgot. You built towers of glass and iron. You reached for the stars, but not for wisdom." Daniel felt the weight of those words. "We did forget," he said quietly. "We lost much of our past. But we're still searching. We still care about knowledge." The guardian tilted his head. "Then why did you dig into my tomb? Why break the seal of silence?" Daniel hesitated. "Because we're curious. Because we want to understand what came before us. We thought this place was just an old temple. We didn't know you were here." Calren moved slowly, stepping down from the throne. Each step sent a soft vibration through the floor. The metal of his body gleamed faintly in the dim light, and for a moment he looked less like a god and more like a tired sentinel. "You are not like the ones before," he said finally. "Their hearts burned with purpose. Yours tremble with fear." Mira swallowed hard, trying to speak calmly. "We're not afraid of you," she said. "Only of what we don't understand." Calren looked at her for a long moment, then raised his arms. The air shimmered, and the chamber filled with floating golden dust. Slowly the particles gathered into shapes, images that played out in the air like living memories. In the visions, giant starships descended from the heavens, their forms smooth and radiant. Humans stood beside golden beings, watching as temples were built. The beings handed them glowing crystals, symbols, and tools of light. The humans bowed, offering bowls of red liquid and pieces of gold. These were the days of balance, Calren said. They offered the essence of life, and we offered memory, knowledge beyond time. But when the storms came, when the skies burned, they fled into the forests. They forgot who they were. The pact was buried. The golden light faded, leaving silence behind. Mira looked at Daniel. It wasn't just a god they worshipped, she whispered. It was an alliance. Daniel nodded. An ancient one. Maybe humanity's first contact. Calren's gaze swept across the room. The creators gave your ancestors a gift, the ability to shape and learn faster than any other world. That is why your kind rose again, even after forgetting. But the gift without memory is dangerous. What kind of danger? Daniel asked. The guardian turned and the chamber shifted again. The walls projected new images, tall cities, great machines, and skies filled with war. Humans and golden beings fought together, then against each other. The air burned. The oceans rose. The vision ended in darkness. The last war of the First Age, Calren said. They turned against the balance. They used the light of creation as a weapon. When it was over, I was told to remain here, to guard the tomb and remind those who came after. Mira's voice trembled. You waited thousands of years. Yes, said Calren. And none came until now. Silence filled the tomb again. Daniel felt both awe and guilt. Humanity had come so far, yet they had forgotten their oldest truth, that they were not alone. Finally, he stepped forward. If this pact can be remembered, can it be restored? The guardian looked at him for a long time before answering. Perhaps, but not with words, not with fear. The heart of your kind must choose. To remember is not to speak of gods, but to act with purpose. He raised his hand and a symbol appeared in the air, a circle of gold surrounding a drop of red light. This is the mark of balance. If you carry it, the path will open again, but if greed takes you, the memory will fade once more. Daniel reached out and the symbol sank into the air before him. It left a faint golden glow on his palm that faded after a few seconds. He looked down at it, feeling warmth under his skin. What happens now? Mira asked softly. The tomb will rest again, Calren said. The cycle must continue. The pact cannot live without belief. The ones who remember must teach others. That is your task now, child of the new age. Daniel nodded slowly. We'll do our best. The guardian's eyes softened. Then perhaps there is hope yet. A low rumble filled the air. Cracks appeared along the golden walls and streams of light began pouring through them. The chamber started to collapse. Calren turned toward the throne once more. The stasis is breaking, he said. My time here ends, Mira shouted over the noise. Come with us. You don't have to stay here. Calren smiled faintly. My place is with the memory of this world. You must live it, not I. Daniel tried to protest, but a wave of warm light pushed him and Mira toward the exit. The tomb opened on its own, the golden orbs lighting their path. The guardian's voice followed them, deep and calm. Carry the light with honor. Remember the pact of gold and blood, not for sacrifice, but for unity. They ran through the hallway as the walls cracked behind them. The hum turned into a roar and the air shimmered like sunlight on water. When they reached the staircase, Daniel looked back one last time. Calren stood at the center of the collapsing chamber, his body surrounded by golden light. He raised one hand in farewell and then everything vanished in a blinding flash. Moments later, Daniel and Mira stumbled out of the ruins and into the jungle. The night sky above was clear, filled with stars. The ground trembled for a moment, then grew still. Mira leaned against a fallen stone, catching her breath. It's over, she said softly. Daniel looked down at his palm. The faint glow of gold still shimmered beneath his skin. No, he said quietly. It's just beginning. Behind them, the temple stood silent, half buried again by earth and vines. But for the first time in centuries, the stars above seemed brighter, as if the forgotten god had turned his gaze toward the sky once more, waiting to see if humanity would remember what it had promised. The jungle wind carried a faint hum, soft and distant like a heartbeat hidden beneath the soil. It was a reminder that something ancient still watched, not in anger but in hope, and somewhere deep in the ruins, a single golden light continued to glow, guarding the pact of blood and gold until the stars called once more. The jungle was quiet at dawn. Mist rolled over the ruins, softening the edges of stone and vine. Daniel and Mira sat at the edge of the excavation site, their equipment still buzzing from the night before. The golden glow from the Guardian's final act lingered faintly in Daniel's palm. He stared at the sphere he held, the fragment Calrin had given him. Inside, lights moved like miniature stars, bright and alive. Daniel could feel a warmth from it, a rhythm almost like a heartbeat matching his own. Mira leaned closer, her eyes wide. "It's incredible." "What is it?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "It's like a memory. Or a map, maybe both." Calrin said it holds the knowledge of the first pact. But we have to understand it. We have to make sure humanity remembers what we almost forgot. Dr. Alvarez joined them, carrying his notebook filled with translations and sketches. The tomb. The visions we saw, they show that our ancestors had knowledge we never imagined. Star maps, technology, understanding of life itself. Calrin protected it for thousands of years, waiting for someone who could value it. Mira's voice was soft but determined. "Then we must protect it too. Not just the sphere, but the memory. The pact of gold and blood," Daniel nodded. "Yes, we have to share it carefully. Teach people without letting greed take it. Knowledge like this could change everything." They spent the next hours documenting every detail they could. The jungle seemed peaceful, but Daniel could not shake the feeling that something more had shifted. Calrin had awakened not to punish them, but to remind them. The world they knew was still small, but the path to the stars had been opened again. Later that day, Daniel, Mira, and Alvarez returned to the site with satellite and scanning equipment. They mapped the tomb from above and below, noting every corridor, every chamber, every glowing pattern left by the ancient Guardian. The golden walls had returned to silence, yet the hum beneath the soil persisted, soft and steady. Daniel placed the glowing sphere on a scanner, observing the patterns it projected. Streams of light formed constellations, some known, others entirely new. He traced lines with his finger, connecting stars, realizing they formed pathways, routes to distant systems, almost like a map for travel. Mira gasped. "This is more than a memory. This is a guide." He wanted us to reach the stars again. Daniel nodded, a smile forming despite exhaustion. "And now we can. But we have to do it carefully. This is not just exploration. It's responsibility." Dr. Alvarez looked at them both, his eyes reflecting wonder. "Imagine how many generations of humans have looked at the sky and wondered. We thought we were alone. Now we see we are children of a greater story." That night, Daniel and Mira camped near the ruins. The air was warm and still. Crickets sang, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called. Daniel held the sphere close, feeling the rhythm of its tiny lights. He thought of Calrin and the first humans who had built temples under the twin suns. He imagined their hope and their courage. Mira spoke softly. "Do you think he will ever wake again?" Daniel looked up at the stars. "I think he is always awake in some way. Maybe not in the way we understand, but he watches, waiting to see if we remember the pact." Days passed. The team carefully transported the sphere to a secure laboratory, keeping it away from prying eyes. They began decoding its projections, studying the constellations and symbols. Each day brought new discoveries. Star maps connected with ancient mathematics, and symbols formed patterns that could influence energy and movement. Daniel realized that this knowledge could advance humanity by centuries. But he also understood the weight of it. Calrin had entrusted them with something sacred. It was not a tool to dominate, but a legacy to protect. One evening, as Daniel studied the projections, the sphere pulsed brighter than usual. A soft golden light spread across the room, forming shapes in the air. He and Mira watched as images appeared. Ships traveling between stars, humans walking alongside beings like Calrin, temples in distant lands, and a path of light connecting worlds. Mira's eyes filled with tears. "He's showing us the future," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Not the future exactly. The path we can take if we remember the pact and act with purpose. He trusted us to continue what was begun long ago." Dr. Alvarez joined them quietly. "It is more than science now," he said. "It is hope, a message across time, given to remind humanity who we are and what we can achieve." The team realized that this knowledge was not only about exploration, but about unity. Calrin had emphasized balance, not power. Blood and gold were symbols not of sacrifice, but of memory and responsibility. Months later, Daniel and Mira traveled to universities and observatories, presenting some of their findings without revealing the full sphere. The stories inspired scientists and explorers, sparking curiosity and collaboration. Humanity had begun to look at the stars not as a place to conquer, but as a place to learn, to remember, and to grow. Back at the ruins, the jungle had returned to its quiet rhythm. Vines and roots began covering the entrances once more. The tomb was silent, but its guardian remained. Deep beneath the earth, the golden light of Calren's heartbeat pulsed softly. He had awakened, judged, and trusted humanity to carry forward the promise. One night, Daniel held the sphere alone in the lab. He activated a projection, and the air shimmered with maps, symbols, and distant stars. He whispered, "We will not forget. We will honor the pact." Mira entered quietly. "Do you think he will come to us again?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know. But I feel that he already is with us. Not in body, but in memory, in purpose, and in the path he gave us. Calren isn't just a god. He is a reminder of what we can achieve if we remember who we are." The sphere pulsed brighter, bathing the room in golden light. Daniel and Mira stood together, feeling the warmth of its energy. The light formed shapes of ancient cities, stars, and temples. For a moment it was as if they were standing among the first humans, beside beings from the stars carrying knowledge across time. Daniel smiled. "We are not alone," he said softly. "And now humanity can reach further than we ever imagined." Mira nodded, looking out the window at the star-filled sky. "The stars are waiting." As weeks turned into months, Daniel and his team continued studying the sphere and the ruins. The golden paths projected by Calren began to guide experiments, navigation systems, and astronomical research. Humanity slowly began to rebuild the lost knowledge of the First Pact, and somewhere deep in the ruins, Calren remained. His heartbeat-like pulse continued to hum beneath the earth, faint but steady, a guardian waiting to see if the children of the earth would truly remember. One evening, Daniel returned to the excavation site alone. The jungle was calm. The stone ruins were bathed in the soft glow of twilight. He placed a hand on the earth, feeling the vibration beneath him. "Thank you," he whispered softly. "We will not fail you." The air shimmered faintly, almost like a whisper in reply. The stars above twinkled brightly as if answering back. For the first time, Daniel felt the vastness of history and the potential of the future at once. Mira joined him, holding a notebook and a small portable scanner. "Are you ready?" she asked. Daniel looked at her and smiled. "We are ready. To explore, to learn, to remember." The jungle settled into night, the stars shining down like a map, guiding humanity toward the legacy of Calren. The golden light within the sphere pulsed once more, steady and strong, carrying the promise of the past into the future. In that quiet moment, Daniel realized something extraordinary. Humanity had been given a chance to rise again, not by force, but by memory, by purpose, and by courage. They were no longer alone. They had the guidance of the First Pact, the wisdom of the Guardian, and the inspiration to reach the stars. And somewhere beneath the earth, the God who had waited so long rested, not in sleep, but in hope, ready to shine again if humanity proved worthy. The jungle was alive with life, the ruins silent and watchful, and above them, the stars shone brighter than ever. Humanity's story had just begun, guided by a God who remembered and a pact that would never be forgotten.